It's been a while since I created a commentary video, and usually I make this type of videos if there's no lore content or the lore mentioned in the update is not too interesting for me to cover ASAP. I'm not saying the reason City of Talon lore is bad. It's good, don't get me wrong. It's just that I need to talk about something else that interests me more and take a little bit of a step back from lore content because it can be too draining to talk about the same thing over and over again. Well, they're not really the same thing anyway, but you get the point. Besides, we all can agree that Song of Welkin Moon event is a lot more interesting to talk about, so of course, I have to make them first to please the algorithm. Today, I want to talk about the most recent battle event. I'm probably going to be the only person talking about this event, but there's a huge reason for that. You may or may not know this video that I created some time ago about Realm of Tempered Valor, and that video got some very interesting comments. I don't expect everyone to agree with me, and if you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you should know that already, considering I am also a lore channel and I create a lot of theories, so I see a lot of people disagree with my theories, and that's fine. I always find them interesting to see other perspectives, but some comments are, let's just say, need to touch some grass. However, I think a lot of people missed the point in that video. I did not make that video for the sake of only complaining, it's because of how badly balanced the event was, and I was not the only one that complained about that event. I love this game and I love the combat events, so I created that video to make a constructive criticism. Also, I never say that events like this are meant for beginners or casual players anyway. In fact, as long the primals are there and accessible for everyone, that's what matters. I stayed true to my opinion and I am pleasantly pleased that the recent event proved me right. This event, the Unlimited Fighting Championship, in my opinion, is very well balanced, not tied to only one specific character or team, there's interesting gimmicks, and I genuinely had a lot of fun doing this event. Of course, there are certain mishaps and difficulties, but considering these kinds of events are meant for you to give your all anyway, that's understandable. I'll be going through the premise of this combat event, the gimmicks, what makes this event so much better than last time, and certain mishaps about this event. With that said, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Neko Gitsune and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. The Unlimited Fighting Championship. Lore-wise, this event is Natlan's new underground fighting ring that offers you different kinds of battle that won't leave you bored, and personally, that description is something that I find very accurate. To be fair, however, the event is sort of recycled from a past battle event, more specifically of Thorns and Crowns event where there's two halves of the battlefield. The difference, however, are the enemies. In Thorns and Crowns, the stages consist of mobs for you to defeat, while in Unlimited Fighting Championship, the stage consists of overworld bosses with 9,999 HP bars. The rewards are like usual. The bronze and silver medals give you primogems, while gold and platinum gives you mora. The first two halves are mostly gimmick battles, and the second halves are the real battle. Depending on the result you do in the first half, it determines how well you do in the second half. The better you do, the more buffs you'll gain for the second team to perform facing the boss enemies. Like past battle events, the buffs provided by each stage will benefit certain characters, so you are required to bring a variety of characters and teams to make your battle easier. If you don't have them, they will give you trial characters to help you each stage, and even though some of these characters can be very disappointing, some are genuinely very helpful. Of course, the only helpful trial characters for the most endgame players are the supports, as the main DPS can be very lukewarm when it comes to their battle performance, but if you want to achieve the main rewards, these trial characters are more than enough to help you to clear content. Having access to trial characters is always a good thing. Like I mentioned in my last Realm of Tempered Valor video, the trial characters not only allow the players to experience the characters themselves, help new players to reach the bare minimum, but also a good marketing strategy to let players experience what the marketed player can do. Of course, they don't have to make them powerful, but as long as they can clear and help players to reach the bare minimum rewards, that's all that matters. In fact, if they make them too powerful with their best in slot and constellations, it'll just give players unrealistic expectations because most players don't check the character's build first, and generally speaking, not everyone has god level artifact stats. Besides, the whole premise of reaching platinum is to test your limits and DPS check anyway, so having lukewarm DPS reaching platinum is putting way too much expectations. Of course, unless you have high constellation supports and insane crit luck, then maybe. Now let's talk about the battle itself. At the beginning of the battle, you will always start with 0 energy. Unless you're Mavuika and use Shilanen as her partner, getting the energy up can be quite a challenge, so Favonia's weapon set shines the most in this event. In my personal experience, changing weapons to Favonius won't ruin your DPS anyway because the buffs in this event are actually very strong, so your characters will hit like a truck regardless. However, I have to say this is one of the rare times that they make characters to this event with 0 energy, and I believe they might continue doing this considering Skirk's artifact set, hinting at her gimmick to be 0 energy cost. It so happens that Mavuika can use Finale of the Tip Galleries, so Skirk likely has unique energy like Mavuika's as well. Everyone is accurate now. I weep for the departed. Anyways, while the offense buffs demand you to bring certain characters, the bosses themselves of course have certain gimmicks. In the first stage, for example, it demands you to bring at least one Boyusu to defeat the enemy. In the second stage, you're required to bring a pyro character to stun Kongamato and dish out as much damage as possible, and this pattern continues on the other stages as well. While it's obvious already, the trial characters are given to you as they're the best option for the stage available. Tasca is the best option for the first stage because the first stage's buff catered towards patch elements. Citlali is the best option for the second stage because the best element to face Kongamato is Pyro, and Citlali at this moment of time is the best cryo applicator for forward melt damage, and so on and so on. I do find it interesting that these stages are indirectly marketed towards Natlan characters, but since they are at the moment of time the best DPS and support options right now, I don't see that as a problem. We'll talk about that later, but this comes to my next point. Since Realm of Tempered Valor is very Mavuika shilling type of event, of course, this event is a walk in the park for her. You can easily clear off stage if you have her premium team because the way Mavuika's team work is to have the buffers and debuffers apply their respective utilities to the team and enemies. Citlali consistently apply cryo to enemies, and Mavuika can deal a huge front-loaded damage while not lose a lot of nukes during her charge attack because her pyro application and attack speed are on the slower side. Forward Vaporize and Melt deal a lot of damage, but utilizing them while consistently dealing damage can be very difficult to maintain, hence why Mavuika is the best option and probably will be the only best option for a very long time. But the good news is, you don't have to use Mavuika if you don't want to, or if you don't have her, and I can prove that to you by showing you my result of playing this event. Yes, you are not wrong with what you're seeing. I used the 4-star character as the main DPS to clear a stage. Of course, Gaming is at Constellation 6 with Refinement 5 Serpent Spine with foot buffs, but since the premise of getting Platinum is for you to give your all and bring your best investment possible, I don't see that as a problem. Also, I just want to compensate myself for only getting Gaming at Phoresis better and not getting any Chevreuse Constellations or a copy of Yansan, and I lost to a Dia. It was painful. But anyways, I am able to clear this event with characters that I own, and I generally had a lot of fun playing this event. This is my personal opinion, but the way I enjoy playing my game is to use the characters I own and change them from time to time so the game won't get too stale for me. As much I love my one and only husband, I also want to try other characters and see how well they perform. I think my favorite clear in this event is using Navia at the final stage. Of course, I did use Mavuika and Shilanen to break the automaton's resistance, but seeing Navia casually deal almost 1 million damage every elemental skill is very satisfying to look at. I did not use foot buffs here by the way, and Navia is not ideal for this stage because she is not an Atlanese. The buffs in the automaton stage demands you to bring at least one Atlan character to trigger the Night Soul Burst mechanic, and if you watch my previous video talking about Realm of Tempered Valor, having more than one Atlanese significantly reduces the Night Soul Burst cooldown. This will become more apparent if you have Shilonen who can trigger an additional Night Soul Burst after having her Night Soul meter full, allowing her to fully utilize the stage's buff. I have to say, while I'm not a fan of Night Soul Blessing mechanic, at least it's Night Soul Burst buff, not Night Soul Align damage buff, because that's a completely different type of buff that can ruin the versatility of character you can use in the final stage. Most of the off-field Natlanese range from good to above average anyway. Yes, that includes Kachina for having access with the scroll set, so I am personally fine with the last stage's restricting buff. You know my favorite type of buff though? Liking and subscribing type of buff. Yay, the cringy transition is back. Well done. But yes, you will help this channel a lot if you like and subscribe to this channel. I'm currently working on a big project making an illustrated video of finale of the tip galleries, and you can show your support by liking this channel because that lets me know that I'm doing a good job. With that said, let's move on to the next point. Now let's talk about how difficult this event is. Generally speaking, all events are free to play since you only need the Primo Gems, and the rewards above that can be obtained by other means like Leyline Blossoms, Teapot, Blacksmith, etc. You can use food buffs in this event, so if you want to make it easier for yourself or if you want to reach Platinum easily, food buffs are accessible, especially that the new 5-star food buff gives plenty of ER and HP, which is suitable for characters with HP scaling or if you have ER issues. Not only that, it's actually quite helpful for the trial characters since the support trial characters in this event have glaring ER issues, but it can easily be solved with Favonius users and this food buff as well. It's pretty much the secret how I clear this event with Gaming as the main DPS because my Gaming has glaring ER issues, but that food buff made it easier for me to clear the stage. Heck, I even got above 1000 points from it. Speaking of ER, starting with 0 energy is quite a hassle since you might waste the first few seconds to fill up all of your character's energy if they rely on them, and unfortunately, a lot of casts actually do. This alone can be the biggest problem why reaching 900 points can be difficult, but again, it depends on how well you build your ER. In my second team, I used the Arlecchino Meld team with Trial Citlali, Shilanen, and Bennett. Yes, basically it's just Malvika's premium team, but the point is, since I use Favonius on both Shilanen and Bennett, everyone's energy fills up almost instantaneously. While the Trial Citlali has ER issues, the foot buff and the Favonius weapon helps to make the rotation in this event smooth like butter, like a criminal undercover. I'm sorry about that. Unlike Realm of Tempered Valor, the event gives you plenty of time to clear each stage, so reaching the Platinum reward is quite achievable for most veteran players. They give you 2 minutes and 30 seconds to deplete the enemy's HP as much as you can, and in my opinion, that's a good duration to go with. However, I have to admit that most of these buffs and the boss choices are very Natlan-centric, which again, I don't mind. One of you in my Realm of Tempered Valor video mentioned that power creep will bound to happen anyway, but that said, there are prettier ways to do them. And to that, I absolutely agree, and for them to make this event very Natlan biased is fine, as long the buff in itself is not gatekeeping as Knight's Soul line damage. This happens in every update anyway, and considering that Skirk's mechanic have something to do with 0 energy gameplay, then we can expect that the meta will shift to something with 0 energy gameplay once Not Cry is released. Finally, this event is very versatile. It's definitely one of those battle events where you can actually enjoy without feeling any sort of FOMO or getting punished by not having a certain characters. While having Mabuika to cheese everything is great, if you don't have her or if you don't want to use her, then you are free to use any other options you have. The final stage definitely wants you to use Mabuika's premium team, especially when the enemy gets countered with Night Soul Blessing mechanic and it's very annoying to face without nuke damage, but if you don't have her, you can use other options as long as you have at least one Natlan character to fully utilize the buff. While the Jade Plume Terrashroom stage demands you to use plunging attackers, you can use the usual Aggravate team if you want to because the chicken gets reduced elemental resistance when you stun them. I think this is a huge improvement from the previous event because the buffs can actually be benefited by characters that need it the most. Before I get to the conclusion, there is something that I need to talk about, and that is the misconception of the event being easy. Now don't get me wrong, these events are always easy to get the main rewards, but since we are talking about what it costs to get the highest medal possible, then I always believe that the concept of easy and free to play has gone somewhat murky as of late. Yes, you can clear events like this with 4-star weapons and 4-star characters, but I want you to give a deeper thought on how people actually clear them. For the most part, it's quite time consuming on both trying it in practice and investment because getting a Constellation 6 4-star character is not easy, even though obtaining them is easier than 5-star characters depending on your luck. Not only that, you might see most of these 4-star characters showcases need you to have good skill and a bit of luck because the enemy's pattern can come from very predictable to very unpredictable. The artifacts being used are cracked stats and the 4-star weapons are usually at refinement 5, which proves that even though you can clear it with 4-star characters and weapons, the investment are very significant. Also, it's very unrealistic for general player to go that far anyway, unless you really want to challenge yourself to the absolute limit, which even then, unless you're on your break, there's really no reason to do that because not only you're making it hard on yourself, but also wasting a lot of time for yourself. But again, each to its own. That's just my opinion as someone who's been playing this game since release. I also want to acknowledge something, and that is, there is no name card being given in this event. I think the name card is the catalyst for Realm of Tempered Valor to be such a controversial event, but since this event has none of that, I think it's the reason why no one really talk about it. But for me, as someone who has made that video and stressed out for hours on end, I did not lie, you can see the proof itself in the community post, I would create that video anyway regardless of the name card or not. The event was designed very poorly because characters that benefit the buffs cannot clear the event in ease, which is different with Unlimited Fighting Championship where the buffs do matter and significantly improve the characters that benefit them. Funny story, I actually recorded my clears twice for this video because the first footage was f***ed up and I happily to do the second run to re-record everything. It took me less than 2 hours to complete everything and I genuinely find a lot of joy doing this because not only I can experiment with more teams, but also find hidden potential for teams I can use in my Spiral Abyss clears. Although, I have to admit, Spiral Abyss as of late has become very difficult to keep up with, but that's another topic that we can talk about in later videos. The point is, since this event has no additional rewards like name cards, there is no catalyst that can trigger the controversy. However, let's say they do add name cards as the final reward. Will there be the same controversy as before? Yes and no, but I'll be leaning to no because this event is way more balanced than last time. The gimmick in the last event was burst damage to begin with, not to be confused with elemental burst damage by the way, I mean nuke damage. And Mavuika was the best option because she is a pyro character with slower elemental application that benefits the melt reaction the most. Not to mention, the event limits you to clear each floor with only 30 seconds and expects you to defeat enemies with HP as thick as Spiral Abyss enemies. That's why people have problems with it. If they lower the enemy's HP a little bit on floor 19, no one will have any problem. One of you actually says it the best, if only one character can beat the event as the best option, then you know the event is terribly balanced. Overall, I find this event to be very well done. Like I said, it's never made for newbies or casual players who just want to play for fun anyway. The Platinum Medal is made for those who want to challenge themselves, and while getting the Platinum Medal is not easy, it's at least rewarding because you are not being punished for not having a specific character. I'd say this is one of the best combat events so far. What are your thoughts on this event? Let me know in the comments. Tiana!